Hello everyone, welcome to Mentors for IAS. I'm Dr. Arjun Bopanna. In these videos, we are doing theorists, anthropological theorists and thoughts. So far we have discussed up to functionalism, and today we are going to talk about structure. So basically the concept of structuralism is nothing but study of a system in relation with respect to its parts and how these parts are interacting with each other. When we say structuralism, okay, it is a study of any system, okay, which is made up of parts and how these parts are interacting with each other to form a system. So even in anthropology, when we tell structuralism, okay, it is nothing but study of parts and how these parts are interacting with each other. So it's a holistic study. We have to study the whole system, but the system is studied by seeing how these parts are arranged with each other, how they interact with each other as a system. We discussed the same idea even in structural functionalism, right? Radcliffe Brown's concept of structural functionalism also, we said that he studied the society in its parts, how each parts function, interact with each other in order to ensure the survival of the entire society. The same kind of concept is related to even structuralism, but here it has a very different analysis of this structure of a particular system, that is the society or culture. The main proponent. So again, we'll just focus on the keywords. The understanding I'm sure you would have already had from your notes and classroom programs. So here, let's just focus on the keywords that has to be there in your answer. Okay, structuralism is a very important topic. The proponent of structuralism and anthropology is Levi-Strauss. He's one of the very famous socio-cultural anthropologists. And he has analyzed myth, he has analyzed, alliances, etc. So therefore, a lot of his contribution has helped us understand different cultural elements in much more detail. So his idea of structuralism is basically that as a system, this culture or society is made up of parts. And these parts, the way it is organized, needs to be studied. And this, since these organization of culture or society is in human mind, Levi-Strauss says, or structuralism says, that we need to analyze the way humans organize their thoughts. Okay, let me make it much more clear to you guys. So basically, as I told you, structuralism emphasizes on pattern and relationship. Okay, rather than individual element, they study how individual elements, parts arrange and form a pattern. But in structuralism, what are these parts? These parts are constituent elements is human mind. How human mind organizes these parts in order to make sense of the society or culture. So the main objective of structuralism is to unravel human mind in order to understand the hidden rules based on which we organize everything around us, whether it is myth, whether it is religion, whether it is totemism, everything is a construct of human mind. So Levi-Strauss or structuralism, what do they try to do is, they try to understand how human mind organize the thought process. That means how they organize these parts in order to make sense of the real world. So there are certain limitations in which these thoughts can be organized. So the way in which it is organized is the structure of that system. So that is there in human mind. So the objective of structuralism is to reveal the underlying structure that governs the social relationship and cultural product. So that means totemism, religion, kinship, everything, okay, is a cultural element or cultural product, and how they are arranged is studied in structuralism. So the fundamental problem or fundamental goal of structuralism is to understand the way in which human thoughts are organized and then compare it cross-culturally. So the way humans think or organize their thought, the underlying principle according to structuralism is universal. You have to remember that point. Again, I'm repeating. So the way humans organize, principle behind the organization of cultural elements is universal. But the product of it varies. See, just to give you an example, if you take a mathematical formula, to determine the area of a triangle. The area of a triangle is measured by a formula, half base into height. This is the underlying formula or the principle of area of triangle. But with this underlying principle, there can be many permutation and combination. The value height can be different. Okay, the base can be different. Based on the permutation and combination of height and base, you can get different triangles with different areas. The same way, the elements, the parts that is there that constitute a cultural element is same across society. But the way in which they are arranged, the permutation and combination of these elements vary from society to society, and that is why you have different cultures in different, but the constituent element remains the same. I hope you understood. The constituent element remains the same, but the way these are arranged, okay, that varies. So if you look at it, basically any culture can be viewed as a model, okay, which is made up of elements. These elements are common, but the way the elements are arranged are different in different society. The way these elements are arranged are different in different societies. So therefore, the structuralist anthropologist should focus on elements and the principles based on which these elements can be arranged. By understanding that, they can understand any cultural phenomena, whether it is religion, whether it is kinship, anything can be understood. So the main objective of structuralism is to build these models by studying, by doing field work. You study various cultures and collect information. Using that information, you build models. The models are based on certain elements, and the way these elements are arranged gives the structure of that particular entity or that particular aspect. So that is what is the main objective. So basically, what do they want to know? What do structuralists want to know? They want to unravel human mind in order to understand the elements that constitute a particular cultural element. So now if you want to study the myth, that is what structural, Levi-Strauss does. To study myth, right, he breaks it down into elements, okay, that constitute a myth. By studying different society, he found out what are the various elements of a myth and how these elements can be arranged. Okay, so by permutation and combination, by using the same element, we can get n number of myths, but the underlying elements remains the same. And how do how can we know what is the elements, what are the components basically of a myth? By doing field work, by doing ethnographic studies. But our focus is not to write about a particular culture or tradition or anything that is specific to a particular society. But we do study, structuralists do study those societies, but with the objective of understanding a general formula or rule or principle that determines the culture, that is myth in this case. So that is something like that. So these are the keywords that has to be there. What are the keywords? So we want to understand the modes of human thought. By doing that, we want to come up with these principles, okay, which determines these cultural elements. The approach is structuralism, to understand human mind. Okay, the basic tenet is they want to focus on the pattern of human thoughts. Okay, and basically these human thoughts are to do with how we categorize our world, how do we, use these elements to make better sense of the world. So there are these hidden rules in the society, in the culture. The culture practitioners don't know about it, but it can be discovered by anthropologists. By undertaking studies, anthropologists can discover these hidden rules. They're not very obvious. Okay, they are not explicit, they are implicit. Even the individuals of that particular culture are not aware of it. All these things you have to know. By doing this, they want to uncover the principles, the formula, the rules that determine a particular culture. What method did they adopt? You have to remember, binary opposition. See, it is again to do with human thought. You and me can make sense of this world through binary opposition. I know what is hot because I know what is cold. I know what is bad because I know what is good. I know what is good because I know what is bad. Everything in this world can be understood or made sense through to binary opposition. That's how the human thoughts are arranged. So as anthropologists, we have to understand and unravel these binary opposition in cultural elements. Now, if you take a myth, we have to identify these binary opposition. There is a hero, therefore there will be a villain. Okay, so there is, cultural elements, there is natural elements, there is fair, there is dark, there is up, there is down. So like that, in every culture, one needs to identify these binary opposition. We need to see how they are arranged. So the main method is binary opposition. That is another keyword that you have to remember. And this binary opposition is universal. So therefore, he also talk about the universality of human thought process. To unravel human mind through these binary opposition, you can use any cultural element like language, myth, religion, kinship. By studying them, you unravel the binary opposition in those cultural elements and see how they are arranged in order to get a model to describe that cultural element. Come up with a model to describe myth. Come up with a model to describe the totemism. So irrespective of which society you go and study, this model can be used to understand the culture of that particular society. It's like if you know half base into height, you take any triangle, you should be able to calculate its base and height by knowing the way in which they are arranged. Same way, by knowing the formula or by creating this model, you can understand and study any society. Unlike structural functionalism given by Radcliffe Brown, structuralism is nothing to do with empirical reality. It's a model, it's a construct created by whom? By us anthropologists. Whereas structural functionalist, the model or the structure that is constructed is the reality. It is what it is. What you see, what you observe, and the model that you construct is what it is. So structuralism is nothing to do with empirical reality. Based on empirical reality, using that information to construct a model, and that model can be used to help you understand any society, because based on the assumption of uniformity of mind that is rooted in common cognitive structure. The way humans think are alike. So it is somewhat similar to the psychic unity of mankind given by classical evolutionists. So it focuses on universal man. Okay, so by doing all of this, we can help or understand cultural elements much more effectively. So functionalists, that is structural functionalist or cultural functionalist, they were focusing on the function of cultural elements. But structuralists don't want to focus on the function. They want to see how they are structured in human mind. I'll repeat again. If you take myth as an example, the functionalist will study the function of myth. Myth is having a function to ensure social order. It provides information to the culture, to the people of the society, etc. So that is the function of myth. Structuralists are not worried about the function. They are worried how the myth is structured, how the parts, how the elements of the myth are arranged. By doing that, they want to understand human mind. So they construct model. Using that model, they can understand all myths. That was the objective of structuralists. So to understand human mind, they have to study the product of human mind, that is language, myth, totemism. But they're not worried about the myth as such, but they are worried about the way in which humans organize their thought. They used the various symbols that are there in the society to understand the product of human mind, because symbols are nothing but the product of human mind. So they did not worry, or they did not focus on the study of symbols, but rather they used the symbols to understand the human mind by constructing a model. Okay, so that is what they wanted to do. So these models are nothing to do with empirical reality. You cannot see these models. They are a construct by anthropologists. Okay, so this is how some of the key words you need to understand. So just to conclude, society has basic structure. The variation of this basic structure, okay, is due to permutation and combination of elements of basic structure. Now, where is this basic structure? It is in human mind. It is based on the elements that is constructed through binary opposition. Okay, these are hidden rules in human mind. So the job of structuralist is to unravel this human mind, to unravel the components of this structure. So that is what is structuralism. So the Levi-Strauss contribution is immense, and we need to study in much more detail. You guys can expect one question from Levi-Strauss or Levi-Strauss contribution towards kinship studies, totemism. So your alliance theory is given by Levi-Strauss. He studied myth and constructed a model of myth by using the same binary opposition. And using this myth, he was able to show how human mind is universal throughout the world, giving evidences of psychic unity of mankind. So these are some of his achievements which you have to remember. So binary opposition, psychic unity of mankind, construction of model, the way in which they are arranged, all these things are important for in structuralism. So let's come to the criticism. Again, some keywords you have to remember over here. It is very subjective because it is nothing to do with the empirical reality. It's a construct. That means anthropologists are constructing these models. And when they do it, obviously, it is going to be subjective. It assumes psychic unity of mankind, so it rejects historical changes, it neglects human individuality, etc. Then it's a very abstract concept because it is a study of human mind. So you can't give any evidences, material evidences to prove and come up with your argument. Then it is over ambitious because it's trying to simplify very complex cultural practices, etc. Then it is also focused on symbols. It used symbols to construct models, but it never gave importance to symbols, especially symbolists. They criticize structuralists, based on that. Postmodernists say that, Levi-Strauss tried to come up with science of explaining culture and human mind, but science goes against the weaker section, marginalized section, etc. Okay, and also it is ethnocentric because you are trying to put your point of view to construct model, to build principles and laws. So when you do that, it is going to be ethnocentric because it's going to be influenced by your own culture. So these are some of the criticism of Levi-Strauss which you have to write. So this is about structuralism. Very important topic, Levi-Strauss and his contribution towards anthropology, structuralism, how structuralism is different from structural functionalism of Radcliffe-Brown. That's also very important. See, the structural functionalist of Radcliffe-Brown is to do with reality, where he says the society can be broken down into parts, each part function to serve the needs of the society. So it's something that you see happen in a society. Whereas here, this structuralism, as I discussed, is to do with human mind. So therefore, it is nothing to do with the empirical reality. It is a construct of anthropologists. Okay, so this way, there are other things that you have to remember with respect to the difference between structuralism and structural functionalism. That also can be a question that can be asked. Also prepare for contribution of Levi-Strauss or structuralist contribution towards the study of myth, study of kinship. So this is something which is very often asked in the examination. I hope this was useful. So if anybody needs help with respect to answer writing, mentoring with respect to anthropology, want to increase the score from 110, 120 to 140, 145, please do join the test series and mentorship program of Mentors for IAS. The description is there below. I hope these videos are useful. Thank you for watching and have a good day.